In the past week, the amount of information we've had about Elden Ring has dramatically increased, with a new trailer and interviews with the game's creator Miyazaki taking place. With this, we learnt more about the lore of Elden Ring, and also how A Song of Ice and Fire author George R.R. Martin was integral to its storyline. So let's spend some time discussing the lore that's currently been revealed and discuss how relevant previous theories were. The Elden Ring is set in the Lands Between, a collection of 6 large areas, each governed by a hero, who have received the blood of a clan called the Demigod. These people have received strong blessings, but there are others called the Tarnished or the Fading People because the blessed golden light in their eyes have faded away. And these people were exiled from the Land Between many years ago. The protagonist of the game, the Tarnished, is a descendant of this banished people. The Elden Ring is the source of the blessing of the Golden Tree, the Erd Tree, and it broke. And because of this, the blessings that were once lost were brought back to the Tarnished, inviting the protagonist back to the Lands Between, and also providing guidance on how they can become king of the land. Many, when Elden Ring was first announced in 2019, theorised that the Elden Ring was a sequel to Dark Souls, such as Dark Souls 4, or at least a game within the same universe. According to The Escapist, when Dark Souls was originally announced, it was actually going to be called Dark Ring, so Elden Ring could actually be a reference to the Ring origins. The Master Lousy 1 and Rummel supposes that Elden Ring is actually the game universe on the painting made by the painter in Dark Souls 3, specifically in the DLC Ashes of Ariandel.
Thou art Ash. Thou hast a pact made with Uncle Gale, so I wish to tell thee all. Behold its size. This is my canvas. It's to be a cold, dark, and very gentle place. But first, I must see flame.
If the timeline of the game Elden Ring was happening eons after the creation of this painted world, and it was in a point of time where the knowledge of the creation of the world was lost in history, the Tarnished people would just be how the people who are stuck inside the painting view them, but they're actually just individuals that have a specific item needed to enter the painted world, in this case being the Elden Ring. In the trailer of the Elden Ring, we can see creatures such as a walking pot. This strongly resembles mimics in Dark Souls, who are also a gangly creature, but in the form of a treasure chest. In my previous Dark Souls Beyond the Iceberg video, we surmised that the mimic could have been caused by the sorcery Chameleon, which allows the caster to turn into another object, such as in Blighttown, where you can turn yourself into a pot. So could this same spell be a connection with Elden Ring? In Miyazaki's interview with IGN, the interviewer actually asked Miyazaki as to whether mimics are in Elden Ring, with Miyazaki saying that you probably wouldn't find mimics in the exact same form, with it being a different world to Dark Souls, but they hope to give you surprises in some way. I think this means that while there'll be references to Dark Souls, they'll just be subtle nods towards their past roots, with Elden Ring being a world free of past constraints, with Miyazaki saying that you probably won't find mimics in the exact same form, but hopefully people like Patches still make an appearance. Miyazaki also states in his IGN interview that Elden Ring is a brand new dark fantasy IP, being a culmination of all of the knowledge collected from previous games, essentially being the evolution of the road paved by the Dark Souls series. However, even though these worlds are pretty much separate from the Dark Souls theories, like games such as Sekiro, and to an extent, Bloodborne and Demon Souls, these games often included characters that will hint at later games. In the Dark Souls DLC, a character called Marvelous Chester is a vendor that's been dragged into the Dark Souls world from a distant future. He is suspected to actually be a hint to the Bloodborne universe, due to his unique bleeding style weaponry, different fighting style, and Elizabethan style of clothing. Similarly, in Bloodborne, there's a character, Old Hunter Yamamura, who's been driven to madness. He has also been suspected, with less evidence, as to being a reference to Sekiro, as he wears a garb from a distant eastern land. So maybe there could be someone in Sekiro that gives homage to Elden Ring. Many people suggest that it could be enemies such as the Armoured Warrior, who end up dying due to fall damage, and have quite a Dark Souls attack sequence. But I think this is more of a reference to previous Dark Souls games. These previous characters were introduced in DLCs of those games, but Sekiro only had DLC that added new mechanics and could change Sekiro's appearance. So maybe there was actually no reference in Sekiro to the Elden Ring. And of course if there was one, it would just be a subtle nod and not true evidence that the universes were absolutely connected. The view of the world was heavily constructed by Martin, with Miyazaki stating in Famitsu's interview that he gave a lot of new stimuli, with a thick, mysterious, dramatic character story being built on kinship and relationships. Martin did not directly build the worldview from his work, but he did write the basis of it. The Lands Between is actually a name that Martin came up with himself, and it's meant to exude a feeling of something that is very mysterious and not of this world. Elden Ring is definitely not Dark Souls 4, as Miyazaki wanted to avoid limiting Martin to the already constructed worldview of the Dark Souls series. Making it a new IP also means that Elden Ring is free from any previous shackles, and has true freedom in thinking. Sure, it's a dark medieval fantasy like what Dark Souls is, but its story is different. Like the story's creation, the gameplay in Elden Ring has a high degree of freedom, with players being allowed to explore the world and tackle it at their own pace and angle. And unlike other Soul games, From Software are trying to minimise the formidable halting effect that bosses have on games, while also keeping the special experiences that boss battles have, which potentially means that more of the game will be allowed to proceed without defeating such bosses. As loosely stated previously, there is a guidance system on becoming the King of the Lands Between, a guide to obtain blessings, but the guidance is just an initial step that a player can either blindly follow, question it, or either completely ignore it. This results in players getting different endings in their playthroughs. I think that this could be similar to Frampt and Karth in the first Dark Souls games, where initially, a player can follow Frampt to Link the Flame, or they could ignore and question his narrative and discover Karth, and bring about the Age of Dark. The storyline to get to these endings in Dark Souls is quite easy to miss, with some supposed cut content such as the Oscar Knight of Astora potentially providing a more detailed exposure of these storylines. I think that while Elden Ring may still be quite subtle with these cues, having deeper character stories, I believe that these options will probably be easier for newer players to explore, or perhaps stumble upon, and I think the lore and the story of Elden Ring will be much more polished than Dark Souls, and I'm excited by the word mystery often being thrown around by Miyazaki. According to Miyazaki in his Famitsu interview, there's going to be a huge amount of in-game text, with Miyazaki himself essentially reading everything and writing most of it directly. This could help their idea of allowing players to discover their own journey and narrative for themselves. The player control character is actually not the only tarnished character that could be brought into the Lands Between by the Lost Grace. All of the tarnished who were once upon a time exiled from the Lands Between have been guided back, and all of these characters have their own adventures and motives, including how they interpret what this guidance back to the lands actually means. With us being one of those characters, we will have to form our own perspective based upon our interpretation of what we come across in the game. I, for one, can't wait for the theories, lore, and rich character development that Miyazaki, Martin, and all at From Software will be bestowing on us at the start of next year. And I hope that you can't wait too.